So the pituitary gland is attached to the hypothalamus, which we have here in the brain, by this infundibulum, or this little stalk. And so the anterior pituitary lobe is a glandular epithelium, and it's divided into two separate areas, whereas the posterior pituitary gland is nervous tissue, and there's only one part to it. The anterior pituitary gland produces 6 different hormones that are important for metabolism, growth, and development. And so what we have here is that the anterior pituitary hormones then are going to be released into the venous system. And really what we have is that with the hypothalamus, that directly will influence either secretion or release of the anterior pituitary hormones. And so the hypothalamus has these different neurosecretory neurons that will be released into the arterial systemic circuit, and then it will travel down the infundibulum and then will affect either by inhibiting or by releasing different stimulating factors that will allow for then the anterior pituitary hormones to be released out into the bloodstream to go to their target tissues. So the hormones that we have include 5 main endocrine cell types and then produce 6 different pituitary hormones. So we have thyroid stimulating hormone, where the target tissue is going to be the thyroid gland, and the action of this is that it will stimulate the secretion of thyroid hormones, and it is stimulated by thyrotropin releasing hormone, and it's inhibited by other thyroid hormones. So the main effect then within the thyroid gland is that it induces metabolic rate. The adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH, its target tissue is the adrenal cortex within the kidneys, and its primary action is to stimulate secretion of glucocorticoids. And so one example of that would be of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And so this is stimulated by corticotropin releasing hormone, but it's inhibited by glucocorticoids. So the main effect then within the adrenal cortex is that it will induce metabolic actions and also plays an important role within the stress response. Prolactin, which we have here, another anterior pituitary hormone, its target tissue are mammary glands and also other sex accessory organs, where this now will promote milk production in lactating females, but also contributes to actions in other hormones. Okay, and so what regulates its secretion though is that it's inhibited by prolactin inhibiting hormone, which is also dopamine. So another hormone we might have heard of is growth hormone. And so this affects almost all tissues, including the liver, bone, soft tissues, and others. And so it is going to promote protein synthesis and growth, and also will produce metabolic actions, and so increasing like lipolysis, breaking down of fat, and increasing blood glucose levels. So this one will be inhibited by somatostatin, which will also be stimulated by growth hormone releasing hormone. Another anterior pituitary hormone is luteinizing hormone, and so this is found within our gonads, and same with follicle stimulating hormone. And let's go back to LH, where this is going to stimulate sex hormone secretion, such as ovulation and the corpus luteum formation in females, and then also testosterone secretion in males. But this is going to be regulated by gonadotropin releasing hormone and is inhibited by an increase in sex steroid production. Now, follicle stimulating hormone, this is important for producing gametes and for stimulating estrogen production in females. And so this too is going to be stimulated by gonadotropin-releasing hormone, and it will be inhibited by sex steroids such as estrogen and testosterone within the body. Regulation of hormones from the anterior pituitary gland include a short loop negative feedback system and then a long loop negative feedback system. However, the final product of what is secreted by the pituitary hormones is due to negative feedback inhibition, okay? And so the hypothalamus, again, it produces its own hormones and then it releases them through the venous system where it will send it down to the anterior pituitary gland. So from there, anterior pituitary might have an increase in secretion of, say, another hormone, and so that secretion of that second hormone is going to inhibit the hypothalamus from secreting the first hormone. And so that's a short loop where we have two hormones that are involved. A long loop might include this same process of the short loop. However, the second hormone is going to its target endocrine gland and then to induce a third hormone to be stimulated and released, and finally have an effect on the target tissue. And so the third hormone that's actually released from one of the endocrine glands is going then to inhibit either the hypothalamus from producing more of this hormone or from the anterior pituitary from releasing its hormone. With the posterior pituitary gland, we have two hormones that that are associated with it. The first one here is vasopressin, or also known as antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, and then the second one is oxytocin. These two hormones are actually produced within the hypothalamus. And then they're transported along the axons of the hypothalamic posterior pituitary tract, and then they are going to be stored actually within the posterior pituitary gland for these two hormones. Okay, so release of both vasopressin and for oxytocin is controlled then by neuroendocrine reflexes. And so ADH, or vasopressin, is stimulated by an increase in blood osmolarity, whereas oxytocin, one of the stimuli for that is suckling, such as with lactating mothers by the infant. And so when these hormones then are going to be stimulated, then they are going to exit out into the venous system, similar to that of what was with the anterior pituitary hormones.